Hi everyone. Today I want to share a couple of cards with the So Many Stars stamp set and Stitched Stars dies. And these use watercoloring, and that's my favorite thing to do. So I thought I would share these two with you. If you want to see more things with the So Many Stars, I did do an intro to this bundle in a separate video, but I wanted to separate out these cards because I made so many and I didn't want the video to be so long. So if you're interested in watercolor, this is the one for you. And for this card, I wanted to show different ways to use the So Many Stars that are not Christmas. So I did a baby card. And then I liked the watercoloring so much that I did another one and it ended up being Christmas. But you can certainly do a baby boy card with the blue watercolor. It looks fairly pretty. Anyway, so I'm going to show you how to make these two cards. It's really simple to get a really pretty watercolor look. And I'm going to grab a couple sheets of watercolor paper and some colors that I want to use for this. Now these are all from the Subtles collection, and I'm using Calypso Coral, So Saffron, Pool Party, and Pear Pizzazz are the colors I'm using for this card. And I usually start with the lightest, which is the So Saffron. Now I paint with my ink constantly, so my lids look like this. If yours do not look like this and you don't want them to look like this, that's okay. You can create a color palette for yourself by using a little palette tray or ceramic dish and put little drops of inker on it and paint right from that. I always buy a re-inker whenever I buy a stamp pad at the same time, so I know that I am going to have this color available to me and at a moment's notice. So actually this is getting low. But another thing you can do is you can take a small block and put it like this, and you can get a few small blocks with an array of colors and paint right off of there if you don't want to have a mess like I do. Another thing that's great for painting with watercolor is something to clean with, and that can be a paper towel, but I find that since Stampin' Up! Sells these wonderful aqua brushes, they have water in the barrel and you can maintain nice moisture on the tip. I just use this for silver. But see what I just did here? I just kind of instantly went over to my Stampin' Scrub right here, and you can squeeze the paint brush and it drips and kind of cleans itself, and if you go like this, you're cleaning your bristles and you've got a nice clean brush without using paper towel. And that's nice because you're just not using as much paper towel, I guess. Saving some paper. You don't have to have that. You can just use things right on your desk. I find this is awesome to get the colors off. And anyway, so the Stampin' Scrub is another great watercoloring tool, in my opinion. Okay, so to do a nice wash, you want to have a wet surface. And so I kind of squeeze my aqua painter. I can see the water coming out, and I don't have to be as careful because I'm intending to make a messy wash. So I am just getting color down, and my brush is very wet. And you're just going to spread that color around. And you want areas of light and dark. You don't want a flat looking, so maybe go in and drop in some dark areas while it's still wet. Now if I was doing this right from here, I would just grab ink right off my block and go like this all around. Okay, and then I just clean off my brush and move on to the next color, which is going to be, I guess maybe I'll do Pear Pizzazz. And I'm going to get I kind of pre-wet an area and then pick up some ink and just get it in there and let it flow and do its thing. And spread that around. And there's my green, and maybe I want some more deeper colors in there. Okay, there is my Pear Pizzazz. Now these two colors, if you know anything about color, they're opposite each other on a color wheel, which means if they blend and mix, like see how my green is kind of blending into my yellow? Well, orange and blue do not mix well. They turn brown, so you don't want these next to each other necessarily. So I can have the Calypso Coral next to the yellow, and then maybe do some blue over here, because blue is perfectly acceptable in the green and yellow. So it's just kind of, you know, placement. Think about if the colors bleed together, what will happen. As I said, my pads all look like this. They are all a muddy mess. So I'm going to add Calypso Coral over here. And then when I put my Pool Party down, I'm going to avoid the Calypso Coral. And get my area wet. Okay, so there you go. Just for quick reference, forget what color's on there. If you want to see what that looks like, you can get them next to each other if you like these two colors together, which I do. They're complementary. I mean, I love them together. But you know, if you carefully get them next to each other, maybe allow one to dry. It's just that if they blend together, you get kind of a weird mud color, which is not as pleasing. It's kind of gray, washed out color. So depends on what you're looking for. But if you're careful, you can get them together, maybe allow one area to dry. Try not to overlap. Because they are beautiful together. I just want to make sure I said they were beautiful together, because I think Pool Party and Calypso Coral as a combination is beautiful. Okay, anyway. There is my palette here, or my paper. My own designer series paper. I'm going to allow that to dry, and while that's drying, let's do the blues, my navy. Alright, so I've got another sheet of watercolor paper, and I'm going to use Night of Navy. Clean my block there. Okay. Make sure I don't have any more yellow on there. Okay, now I'm going to do a wash over the whole thing, because I'm going to use it for cutout star, but I also want to use it, I just think it's a really pretty wash. It's a really pretty background, so I'm going to do, you know, it's nice to, when you cut out the star, to also use the part left over from the wash, which is, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cover the whole thing. So to do that, it needs to be really wet, because you're going a big distance here. So I'm going to kind of pre-wet an area by squeezing the barrel as I wash over the whole thing. It is, I mean, you don't have to get it sopping, but I'm just kind of giving it a little bit of water right off the bat. You can even tape this down with some washi tape if you wanted to. I'm not gonna. I'm a kind of a speedy stamper. And then I'm going to pick up ink, a lot of ink. I want to pick it up and get it right down onto that paper. And I like it to be pretty dark when I'm using navy as a sky. So I'm kind of trying to load up that ink, and I'm just kind of washing it down the page. Now you want some lights and dark areas. It's kind of the beauty of watercolor, is the various tones. So go ahead and have some dark. I like that bloom there. Alright, this part is getting dry because it's a big piece. Now technically, if you have watercolor brushes, you might want to use a wash brush to do this whole thing, but I'm trying to use all Stampin' Up! Products because this is what I use. I'm actually, I mean, I watercolor all the time, but I make cards mostly. So this is what I use, what is on my desk, and I think it looks just great. Okay, so if this is dark enough for you, let it go, be done. But if not, add a little more. Okay, so I'm going to clean this brush off of navy and set that aside. Maybe a little more. I want to be able to see the silver highlights that are going to hit this. Okay, now I'm going to use a Wink of Stella brush that is glitter. Basically, I think it's glitter and some kind of alcohol-ish medium to spread it, and I'm going to squeeze it. It works just like an aqua painter. I don't want to squeeze it over my project because sometimes it can leak, so I'm going to squeeze it off to the side, and once I can see that it's wet, I'm going to flick the glitter onto my paper here. And it's leaving flecks of shiny glitter. It's hard to see that on video, but it is. But I'm not done here. I wanted to really make the glittery background shine. I didn't need to clean that. And so I also took some of our holiday catalog silver ink, and I'm using it. I don't want to put water in my silver ink pad because I don't know how that works. I know these are water-based inks, and adding a little bit of water to the lid isn't going to hurt it, but I wasn't sure on the metallics, so I put a drop of the re-inker on a block, and I'm adding water and treating it just like the ink. So I added some water, and you can paint with this, and that is really fun. And you're going to flick it just like you did that Stella. So now I've got some silver on here, and it adds even more shine. Okay, and then you need to take a Q-tip and kind of clean out your lid. And also the silver ink doesn't just rinse off as easily, so sometimes I will take, after I've used the metallic ink on a brush, I will take it to the sink and just rinse it really well, as I will do in a minute. Okay, so now this is drying. I am going to, once it's getting mostly dry, I was thinking about going back in and flicking some navy droplets on it too, just to give it some darkness, but I kind of think, well, maybe I will. I kind of think I have enough lights and darks on here, so maybe I will leave it alone. So we'll see. Let me set that aside. Now, if you need to, you can grab some of your Stampin' blocks and hold your paper down a little bit. I don't think this warped too well. I think this stayed pretty straight, which is nice. So this is, it's the Stampin' Up! Fluid 100 cotton paper, and it's wonderful. Okay, so I think this is almost dry. I really wet this one, so this one is not dry. If you need to, you can take your heat tool and dry these, and that's what I'm going to do just to speed up my afternoon. Okay, my next step is to cut out my stars. So I'm going to lay a few of the shapes down and kind of see where you think you want them. I actually like when some of the watercolor paper shows through. I want people to see that this is a watercolored piece. So that is, I like that. So when you're laying it down, think about what's going to show through. Okay, from here it's just a simple job of layering. We're going to I like to use shimmery white cardstock. It works, I think, better with the watercolor paper because watercolor paper is not a crisp white. It's got a slight ivory to it, but yet it's not very vanilla either. So the shimmery white is kind of a good match for it because it's not very vanilla, it's not white. And see how the watercolor paper is almost the same shade as the shimmery white, so I think it looks really nice together. And shimmery white is heavier and it stands up nicely as a card base, so it's just a really pretty option for watercolor card bases. Now here you're going to start with your largest star and find a place for that, And this is the one that I stick down with some dimensionals. So it's popped up slightly. So how I'm going to lay that down, let's see, I think like this. Okay, now once you've got this down, you can place your other stars kind of how you like. And here I just use liquid adhesive, my multi-purpose glue, because they naturally curl up anyway because they've been watercolored, so they're not super flat, and I think that they look nice glued down. And here, just kind of place them around. Make sure some tuck underneath each other. Make sure you get some of each of your colors. And here's a nice blue. And you can overlap. So even though I've tucked this one straight down with some adhesive, I let the point overlap the star that's stuck up. I think that's fine. And you can just play around with some of these stars. Now obviously I cut way more than I need because I'm just cutting what was on the paper. So that's all right. You're going to end up using these eventually on something else, right? So go ahead and place them down as you like. I don't know if that's enough or if I should put one more. I think I'm going to put one more. Okay, so decide how you like it and let those dry just a moment while we make our welcome baby. Now there is a stamp set in the annual catalog, that's the large catalog, called Well Said, and I think it is a awesome stamp set for card makers because it has just about everything you need. And here we're going to use welcome and baby together, and just look at what you can make with this. So many combinations. It's a huge stamp set. So I'm going to use the welcome and baby. Alright, now I've cut myself a strip of shimmery white cardstock, and this is 1 inch. And I'm going to use, just to grab a couple colors that you used in your stars. So I'm going to grab Calypso Coral. And Pear Pizzazz. Now I just eyeballed that and I'm not happy with it. I'm going to flip it over and try one more time. If I can't get it with an eyeball, then I get out my Stamparatus, which is a nice thing to have, but it does take up space on my desk. So I try not to use it all the time. Alright, I'm going to use this one. Okay. And to flag the end, I just make a snip right up the center and then meet that center from either side. So I'm going to add this to my card base. And on the inside, let's do So Happy You're Here. It's also from that Well Said stamp set. It has inside and outside sentiments. It's a large stamp set, and I think it's just great for a card maker. It's a wonderful stamp set to have. All right, and then you can, if you choose, you can throw some of these little leftover stars in there. I'm going to do that. And the rest I will put in my little packet of leftover cutouts. Alright, that's the baby card. Oh, I forgot my little bow. So you can tie yourself a little tiny bow. This is from the Nature's Twine pack, and I happen to have a ton of Baker's Twine. From Stampin' Up has been selling Baker's Twine forever, and they always have different colors in the different catalogs, and I sometimes see it on the clearance rack and grab some. So I happen to have probably all these colors, but this is one that's still current in the catalog, so I thought I would use it on this card. I'm just going to attach that with a glue dot. There's my welcome baby. So happy you're here. Very cute. And now let's work on the Christmas version. Okay, for this one, placement of the stars does matter because I want to use some of the stars on a card front like this and some like this. So I'm going to cut my piece of watercolor paper here. I'm going to trim it down to the size I want to use for my card front, and that way I'll know what I have left over for the larger star, and I'll also be able to judge where to put these stars. Okay, so for my card front, I like sometimes to have a watercolor edge here, but I'm not going to be able to because I know that this edge is going to have to be cut, so I might as well cut both. So I'm just going to trim a little bit off of the side. And then I know that I want my card front here to be 3 3/4. Wrong one. And I want it to be by 5, so I need to cut a little bit off of this one. And I did not go close enough to the edge. I should have went all the way to the edge on here. So I'm going to grab my aqua painter and try to add some really quickly. Sometimes we can do that and sometimes we can't, so it just kind of depends on what happens. We might have to make this even smaller. I think this is going to be just okay because, you know, we're going to add things and stars and ribbon down the side, so you're not going to have a lot of focus right along these edges here. So I think we're good. I think I've blended it out. Alright, so now for placement, just kind of take a look. I think I used maybe this one. Like so. And then with this piece over here, we can go ahead and cut out a larger one and we don't have to worry so much about placement. Oh, this one. Oops, I used this one. Okay, so let's cut these out. Okay, first up, let's show you this mercury glass acetate. It's in the holiday catalog, and it's an acetate with a silver finish that looks like mercury glass, and which is like that silver mirrored, I don't know what it is really, a treatment that that some glass ornaments come in at Christmas time, and it has the look of an old antique mirror. And so it's got a couple different patterns in it, and you get a package of that. There's 4 sheets, you get 2 each of each pattern. So I've cut a piece at 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to layer that on my card base of Night of Navy. So I have tried to run my tape runner on the acetate, and because it's so slick, it really doesn't run across, it tends to skip a lot. So I'm going to run the tape runner directly onto the card base. I know that I have a little bit of clearance, so I'm just going to make sure I don't go all the way to the edge, and then place it down. Okay, and then for my negative space here, my other background piece, I'm going to use dimensionals, and I want to put more than normal. Normally I stick to the edges, but here I want to make sure to get some in the middle because you want this to be raised up. You want people to see the depth here and the shadow. So make sure that you get that up even in the insides. And I forgot to snake my ribbon through. Hopefully I can still do that. I normally would have laid it down before. I think I'm really close. Yes, I am. All right, nice use for the take your pick tool. I was almost all the way there. And you see I'm using a different ribbon. It's only because this is on my desk and I wanted to see which one I like better. All right. So I'm going to make sure I have enough ribbon here and tie a bow. Not the most graceful of a bow tire, I'll say that about myself. I think I might like the white better. You tell me what you think. Alright, so next I just need to add some little pieces here. We're going to make these with a strip of navy, Night of Navy cardstock, and then we will add some little stars to the front too and put this one together. I'm using Versamark, which is a sticky, I don't know if it's ink or not, sticky pad, and I'm going to put my word love down. And peace. And I actually need 2 of the piece, so I'm going to make another one. See if I can fit them all on this one scrap. I'm going to use silver embossing powder. Just flicking off any excess of the silver powder. It's always magical to watch the embossing, isn't it? Okay, so we need the love and peace. Now you notice the love is kind of lower, and that's because it's going to kind of be on the, it's going to tuck behind the piece, and I wanted you to still be able to read it. so it is a little lower. You could center it if that bothers you. See, it's going to tuck underneath like that. Okay, so I used glue dots to attach these two together. And I'm going to tuck them under the bow like this. And then I always like to tuck a glue dot under the bow so that it stays exactly where I want it. And then to finish off this card, I just threw a couple of the solid Night of Navy stars down, kind of wherever you think you need them. I think I'm going to leave it there. Okay, and then let's finish off this one. This one's really fast too. For this card, we're using a card base in Shimmery White. We're using a matte piece in the Seaside Spray, which is relatively new, and then another main panel in Shimmery White. So we're going to start by stamping this star spray from the So Many Stars stamp set across our background, turning it every so often so that the edges are not always the same star image at the side. And then for some variation, we're going to grab that small stamp from the same stamp set and just add it here and there. And then one more time with the same stamp set, we're going to add silver. Just every so often. There we go. All right, that's our background. Now we're going to take the large star that we cut out and put it down with dimensionals. And I used some of the smaller dimensionals on the points just so that this one, sometimes I don't mind if the stars curl up, but I wanted to keep this one more flat. Actually, I'm going to leave one point off because I'm going to run my ribbon through it. We're going to put our star down, and then these little tiny little, I don't know what they are, little accent pieces are from the Stitched Stars dies, and you get 5 of those little dies, so you can cut them all out at one time. And I showed all of the dies that go with this Stitched Stars die set on a previous video called Introduction to the So Many Stars bundle. And it just shows off all the dies, and I think they're great. I think this is a really great die collection. I think there's 20 something dies. These little ruffles are so cute. Okay, I just realized I used a smaller star. I've got so many stars on my desk. I've got like oodles of stars. Okay, so that's okay. Now for this one, I used the ribbon across the bottom of the card, and I went through here. Make sure I have enough. Okay, so I've got my bow tied there, and then I'm going to use that piece I cut. Where did it go? Here it is. Oops. Now flag the end. I'm going to actually use those strips that we always have left over on the back of our dimensionals, or on the sides, these little strips. Might as well use them in behind ribbon or behind little flags. Is the perfect place to do it. and I'm gonna, oops, you can see my back. Stick this down. The So Many Stars stamp set comes with some nice sentiments for the inside of this card as well. And so let's add something. Alright, so the bigger star on this one is kind of nice, although that one works too. I left these blank, but they're just aching for something. So got two different versions here. That one says hoping all your Christmas wishes come true, and this one sending love and cheer and plenty of cheer. May your days be bright throughout all the year. Very nice. And then you can see that I have a little smudge there. That is going to be the perfect spot to put a star, don't you think? Okay. Go ahead and use some of these stars that are flying all over my desk. That one's a little big. Let's go with all right, there's one. Two there. I covered up my smudge. Okay, so there we have some watercolored stars. That was longer than I thought it would take. Sorry about that. Here's this one. Oh, here I did do the inside on that one. This one says, "Oh holy night, the stars are brightly shining." And here I did some silver and some leftover stars as well. So there is my Christmas versions. And then the Welcome Baby version, which I think is super sweet. So I hope that you will take a close look at the So Many Stars bundle. It's really great, and those dies, you're going to use them like crazy. I know you will. And you know, it's just so versatile. And I have a frequent buyer rewards program at my blog, bethspapercuts.com. When you go there, I hope that you'll click and subscribe to my newsletter. And also join me on Facebook. I have an idea sharing group. If you buy this bundle or you already have it because you're maybe a demonstrator or you have another demonstrator, feel free to share what you're doing with it. This is a Beth's Paper Cuts idea sharing group, and you can share what you're making. I'll share what I'm making. I will show you all the cards that I've got with this stamp set. I have so many. And it's really a fun stamp set, and it's a nice place to share what's going on with the set. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you'll come back and watch. I have more star videos to come. I've got a beautiful box and ornament with the same dies because they're great. Thanks for watching. Bye.